So good morning. This is US History, October 8th, 2020. I'm your instructor, Mr. Townsend. We're going to do some review today, and we're going to look at Summit, some of the expectations that I have for Summit. And we're going to give you a preview of what our final project is going to be. As of right now, we have 2 checkpoints up. So I'm going to start with looking at the checkpoints. I'm going to share a screen with you with Summit. A lot of you have this done already, so if you do, just just follow along for a moment with me here. Okay, so Summit. Where is Summit? Okay. And I'm on the wrong class. Okay, so this is US History. Okay. We started with a basic definition of what an immigrant was. We explained how immigrants have had different roles and expectations throughout history, especially in this country of America. Their role has changed. The attitudes toward immigration has changed. So let's look at the first one. I know that, let me see if I can get back. I didn't mean to show exposure grades. Okay, so when you go on the Summit, I want you to, I changed the other classes. I didn't get a chance to change this one. It will automatically go to your checkpoint 1. If you look down here at the bottom, I did add some resources here. And that's for checkpoint 1 was the Know Nothing Party and Immigrant Resentment. So that link will get you right to a PowerPoint. Some of you guys have done really well on answering your questions and being on point with that. So that PowerPoint will pop up in the left-hand corner, and then you have the full lesson. We also have lessons that are now being put up on YouTube. So I will have to share that link with you. I know I have students who are working. We have students who are parents. And students who sometimes are unable to make it to class in a timely manner. So I would like you to be able to get credit for what you're doing while you're here. Did I lose somebody already? Okay. All right. So speaking of Summit, let's go over what I wanted to talk about today, and that's your expectations. And I don't want it to be repetitive or preachy. I just want you to understand from an academic viewpoint what your expectations are. I know that in the beginning, I didn't know much about Summit and how to use Summit and all those other things, but now I'm getting better. Let's see. Okay. I'm going to share this with you. And once again, if this does not apply to you, just don't take it personally. So we have Summit. We're using Summit. It's platform-based. You guys are responding in there. I am trying my best to tweak the curriculum to make it a little bit more understandable for you guys and a little bit more accessible. If you go to checkpoint 2 right now, you're not going to find just that PowerPoint. I will add more resources as we go along. So quickly, just some Summit expectations. We'll first talk about academic and personal integrity. And what is integrity? What does the word integrity mean to you? If I said a person has integrity, what does integrity mean? I'll put it in the chat there. What is integrity? Everybody take a shot. The word integrity, what does that mean to you when you hear that word? Or have you heard that word? All right, since I'm getting responses, I'll just continue. Integrity is defined as what you do when no one is looking. So academic integrity is what you're doing academically when you're on your own, not in class, not in a setting with other people, but when you're on your own and you're being presented with an assessment, such as a checkpoint. Academic integrity is you doing your work for yourself. Our second one is plagiarism. Plagiarism is copying. That's a direct copy. Let's see if I have a book nearby. I don't. But if I had a book, let's say I had a book. This book here is American Civics. I use it sometimes to integrate ideas into my curriculum. But I can't take what that book says and claim it as my own, correct? That is plagiarism. So we're talking about taking someone else's ideas and work. For those who work, if you worked all week and you went to get your paycheck and you showed up to get your paycheck and someone else grabbed it from you, you probably would not feel too good about working those 2 weeks. You're going to want your money back. You're going to want your time back. Same thing academically. We don't plagiarize. We don't take someone else's information and claim it as our own. So there are 2 checkpoints so far as of 10/7. They need to be answered in Summit. Like I said, I think most people that are logged on are caught up to that point. If there's anything yellow, that probably means there's a revision or an elaboration. So I want to go over 4 essential questions that need to be addressed when you are responding to assigned checkpoints and to projects. And the 4 questions are, how should the questions be answered? Where do I find the answers? How do I respond to the answers correctly and responsibly? And what is allowed? What is permissible? And I will give you an example of integration of evidence. So what is permissible? What is allowed when you're on Summit? Well, I want you to put a well thought out response. I want it to be your thoughts thought out. Try to proofread the materials. There is a site called Grammarly. I don't know if you guys can get access to that, but that does a lot of proofreading for you. Try to proofread materials, maybe read it back to yourself, make sure that it's a coherent thought. The same thing, always check for spelling, capitalization. Restate the question if you don't know how to begin the answer. I'll show you how to do that in a minute. Provide details from the text. That shows me that you're not going to Google answers and simply cutting and pasting. Thinking for yourself. It's not pride, it's taking pride in your work and not taking the easy way out. And anytime that you don't feel that the information that you're receiving is just too difficult, don't be afraid to ask for help. So how should they be answering? They should not be direct cut and paste from other sites. I will recognize that immediately. I will put a red on and say, this is cut and paste, answer it yourself. If you go to college, you're always going to have to cite evidence. You're always going to have to cite references. You're going to give bibliographies. You won't have to do that to that extent in this course, but you should be referring and citing the evidence from the text source and the PowerPoints that you receive. Whether it's a quote, whether it's an article, whether it's a video, you can say, I learned this from, and then you tell me which one. I will not accept answers that are not written in your syntax. And what that means is people have a way of talking, whether it's through verbal talking, whether it's through writing. And if you're in class and you're giving short answers, and then all of a sudden when you send in your work, you're a college professor, I'm going to be able to differentiate the difference. Plagiarism, which means cutting and pasting from Wikipedia. Do not use Wikipedia. All you're doing is hurting yourself. Evidence needs to be integrated, restate the question, and answer in your own words. I would rather you use your own words and not somebody else's, because we can always work on what you submit. Try to use academic vocabulary. Um, Sad, bad, and glad. They're what we call grade school words. Um, how do you feel about something? It shouldn't be I feel bad. Elaborate a little bit more on that. Same thing on an ambiguous statement. It was good stuff. What stuff? Where did this stuff come from? And you should be incorporating the idea of how does the response help you gain a better understanding of the content. So when you respond, is it helping you gain a better understanding of the content? So where do I find the answers? Well, there's source material. There's material up on Summit that you can access and use. There's supplemental resources. That'll be articles and videos that are posted. Sometimes you may have to do some independent researching or summarizing. If you have access to a cell phone or a tablet, you should be able to do this. Sometimes the answers may be in the articles or videos. Take time to think about your answers and try to integrate the facts with your own understanding. If you want to quote the article, that's fine. Put it in quotes. If your answers are completely irrelevant, if I say, how did Reconstruction affect the life of Irish and Black immigrants, and you put banana pudding, I'm not going to accept that. That is completely irrelevant. If you're having problems finding the answers, you can simply ask the teacher for one-to-one during lab time. And if you can't do it during lab time, I'm sure we can find another time. So how do I respond correctly and responsibly? Be honest, take your time. Don't be afraid to take time to ask questions. So an example I'm going to give you here is restate the question. So if I asked you a question, how did Angela Davis' activism and imprisonment affect American society? I could start the response by Angela Davis' activism and incarceration affected American society by. Then I think inside of myself, what did she do? So in the quotes, I'm putting myself, she raised social awareness. She started a movement to actually free herself from prison. She had affiliations, she had bold affiliations with the Black Panther Party and the Communist Party. What did those actions lead to? It led to her imprisonment, but talking about her incarceration. So if I would say the quote, and then I'm taking the quote from the source information, whenever you conceptualize social justice struggles, you will always defeat your own purpose if you cannot imagine the people around whom you are struggling as equal partners. So she is saying, this quote, I'm writing, this quote shows that Angela Davis understood the belief that we must see others as equals before we can truly understand their struggle or empathize with them. So I'm using something from the text to answer my questions. And just like in other parts of your life, you have to be responsible. You have to be responsible with your schoolwork. So last thing, what's not permissible? Cut and paste from outside sources. 2-word responses. I'm glad, I'm sad, I'm hot, I'm cold. That's not answering the question. Any flat out plagiarized work that comes from another source, or no work with no attempt at original thought or verbiage, which means I know that you didn't take any time to think about it. You just kind of, okay. So grade reports. So does anybody have any questions about what I'm asking or what I was presenting as far as your expectations for Summit? Does anybody have any questions on the expectations? Okay, so that link will be put up on Summit for you. And you can reference that if you have any questions about if what I'm turning in, I want you to be mindful of what you're turning in. Is it from somewhere else? Did I ask for help? Did I clarify? Or did I just try to take the easy way out with it? All right. We are going to continue our theme about immigrants. I had an article, actually, I had a document that I made. I'm sorry, this is the wrong class. Apologize. All right, for some reason, I can't seem to find that. So let's go back to our first review was the Know Nothing Party. We went over Know Nothings. The second one was this one that's up now. And this is just review before we move on to a third checkpoint, because I have a lot of people that in class that haven't got it done. So we talked about post-Civil War. After the Civil War, there was a lot of resentment toward immigrants. That was a word that we used several times. Can somebody define the word resentment? What does resentment mean? No, you're not, Christina, you're not getting another checkpoint today. You probably won't get a, okay, good. Hate or bitterness, thank you. So hate can, resentment can mean a hatred or a, bitterness is a good word to towards someone or a group of people. Resentment can equal hate or bitterness. So we're talking about these changing attitudes toward immigrants in this country. And a lot of people resent immigrants because they believe that somehow immigrants are taking their opportunities from them to have a better life in America. So it's the same thing after the Civil War. We had these vagrancy laws. You guys answered about vagrancy laws. We had the black codes. We had Jim Crow laws and the formation of the Ku Klux Klan. What was the problem? What ideology did the Ku Klux Klan, or what was the attitude of the Ku Klux Klan? Who did they dislike and why? Ashton, are you there? What did the Ku Klux Klan say? Who did the Ku Klux Klan dislike? Who did the Ku Klux Klan dislike that they still dislike today? Come on, folks, you're killing me. You got to interact here. And you guys know some of the answers. The Ku Klux Klan. Who are they? Who do they dislike? Okay, well, since we don't seem to have a good understanding of who the Ku Klux Klan is, maybe we can watch something that'll give us a better idea. All right, so I'm going to play a about 3-minute video to help you guys get a better understanding. I'm pretty sure we should know. It was in our second PowerPoint. Who was the Ku Klux Klan? What were Jim Crow laws? And things like that. But since I'm not getting responses, we'll just do a review. And I'll show you a short video on what the Ku Klux Klan is. So I want you to think about, while you're watching the video, who is the Ku Klux Klan? Who did they dislike? And why? What was their reasoning? Okay, got Nat Geo. I'm gonna put this on.
At the turn of the 20th century, America.
Hold on.
America's social landscape was changing rapidly. Urbanization, industrialization, and a massive influx of Jewish and Catholic immigrants from Europe. The Klan began a violent campaign to terrorize immigrants and exploit fears that immigrants threatened American values. By the 1920s, Klan membership was over 4 million. During the 1930s and 40s, Klan membership again declined, but the Klan experienced a resurgence during the Civil Rights era. In the 1950s, blacks began to demand an end to the Jim Crow laws in the South that legally supported racial discrimination. Seeing the Civil Rights movement as a threat to white rule, the Klan went on the attack. Between 1955 and 1965, Klansmen or Klan sympathizers carried out over 200 bombings and murdered 40 civil rights workers. Brutal images of Klan violence turned public opinion against the KKK. By the end of the 1960s, the FBI was successfully infiltrating the Klan, and its leaders were being prosecuted. It seemed the Klan had been defeated. Klan membership declined from nearly 40,000 in 1961 to a low of 1,500 in 1973. But over their long history, the Ku Klux Klan has always managed to rebuild.
In the end, ladies and gentlemen, these homosexuals, race mixers, Jews, they will all be the fertilizer in the land.
Okay, let me stop that real quick. Okay, sorry about. Okay, thank you for coming back, Sammy. Didn't mean to put you to sleep. Not my intention. So, what was the? Why did the Ku Klux Klan? Why were they formed? Who did they dislike? Was it just African Americans? What did the video say? Was it just African Americans that they disliked? Was it just African Americans? If you listen to the man who had the hood on at the end, he was talking about homosexuals. He was talking about people that he called Race mixers, yes. He was talking about people they called race mixers. That would be my parents. My mother is German, my father is black. So they believe that people like me are a degradation to white society. He also said the word immigrants. And said inside the video that they were founded with the idea of terrorizing immigrants. And if you remember from the PowerPoint video, a PowerPoint presentation, that there was two types of people that they were terrorizing. Of course, it was African Americans, but they also disliked the Irish for being what we were calling, what was the word? Willing secessionists or casual secessionists. They didn't really care about the war in America and the division in America. So the Ku Klux Klan is an organization. You go back to our PowerPoint. After the Civil War, there was the 13th, 14th, 15th Amendment during Reconstruction. Reluctant secessionists, they were called. So we had the Irish and the Black, who were considered primarily the main immigrants that the attitudes were changing toward. We had these vagrancy laws, these Black codes. Irish were looked upon because of their belief systems, Catholics. Today, we have a lot of people who are discriminated against because of their belief systems. Some people who are Jewish, some people who are Muslims, some people who are Christian. It depends on the part of the world that you live in, but people can be discriminated against for various reasons. But at this time, since we're talking about immigration, and we put the video on about the Ku Klux Klan, we see that in 1920, there was 4 million Klan members in the United States. By 1973, there was only 1,500. How many do you think there are now? How many Klan members are there now? Do you think there's a lot? Zero. I would love to think that there is none left. Unfortunately, the Ku Klux Klan has morphed. It has changed. Yes, they always.
Yeah, it's more, right?
Yes, there's
I
more.
don't know why I said zero.
That's okay. They always regroup and they reincarnate themselves as different groups. I don't know if any of you guys watched the presidential debate, but they were talking about a group called the Proud Boys. And the Proud Boys are a group of white extremists who they support white supremacy, and they're out in the open. So now they are taking the hoods off. They are doing it out in the open. It's kind of weird. We looked at that video about attitudes today, and we saw that the POTUS, which is the President of the United States, is using the same tactics that have been used before. Because when attitudes shift towards immigrants, whether they're useful in the economy, war especially, they're useful, helping the economy, they're useful. But this country has suffered a white male resentment over and over throughout history. That was one of the questions in your assessment. And the white male resentment, Zanelia said that resentment is a hatred or an anger towards something. Some people don't want to see other people doing better than themselves. So for someone like myself, I've lived in areas where there was a large population of people who were Caucasian. I've also lived in large populations where everybody was African American. And it seems like it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on. A lot of people, we used to call it hating back in my day. It's probably different now. But a lot of people do not like to see other people progress. They do not like to see other people gain things. So we're talking about attitudes toward immigrants. So the Ku Klux Klan, Their job was to terrorize these immigrants, terrorize the 4 million people that were freed from slavery. And we're not, this is, even though that happened in the 1860s, and you're talking about the 1920s and the 1970s, today, right now, going on today, is the same thing in this country. We have, I just saw a video the other day. Let's see. And you can Google this yourself, and you'll see tons of, just to show you how easy this is, I'll go to a Google screen. Get out of here. Whoops. Sorry about that. Oh, thank you. If I put in a simple Google search about, I'm going to share this with you, about, I just used the 3-word Trump supporter fight. Not saying that it's always the Trump supporters' fault that there's fights, but look at the headlines. Look at today's date, October 8th, 2020. That document right there behind me is the Emancipation Proclamation. It was signed in 1863, which was quite some time ago. If you look at the top, Trump supporters clash with protesters in Chicago. Fight erupts between Trump supporter BML supporters. Trump supporters attacked after rally. Pro-Trump supporter arrested after he punches man. This one I think just happened recently. See if I can find this. So this guy here, he punched another guy in the face simply because the guy disagreed with his philosophy. So it says pro-Trump supporter, and of course that's a little bit of propaganda. We don't have time to get into propaganda today. Punches in the man in the face. Why did he punch him in the face? He punched him in the face because simply the man was holding a sign. Here it is. Okay, here's the video.
Mash you, homeboy! I'll fucking eat your fucking face off, motherfucker! You want a fucking piece? Turn it off! Hey, you guys shouldn't be here, bud. I'll fuck you off! Hey! Get up, motherfucker!
Okay, so just in that short, excuse the profanity, but do you see how do you see the anger in that man's face? Do you see that aggressiveness? Because someone else disagreed with what he believed. And that's where that idea of white male resentment. Now, that's an individual act of violence, but systemically, which means from the base of our country. Imagine having people with those same attitudes in positions of power. It can make them very dangerous. It can make them very dangerous to you. Okay, yes, we're all going to react differently, but we have to realize we have to educate ourselves, and we have to control ourselves not to respond to the ignorance of other people. Just because someone has resentment towards you, or they have an attitude, simply because I'm brown and I have a beard, I've been called a Muslim, I've been told to go back to my country. I've heard all kinds of things, that I don't believe in God, just because simply of my appearance, the way I look. And this goes on. It's the differences that causes resentment. The differences in religion. The differences in physical. From the way you look, the way that you think. Sometimes even the way that you talk. And these attitudes are going to keep shifting In our next class, we're going to start talking about the next checkpoint that we're going to get to is industrialization. And the video actually showed a little bit of industrialization in 1920s. You had a lot of immigrants coming from Europe, Italy, Spain. I don't think we have that many from France, but primarily Ireland, Italy, a lot of Irish and Italian Americans coming in, and also the freed slave, which changed the landscape of America. So our next checkpoint will be on industrialization and the effect that industrialization had on changing attitudes toward immigration. So as of right now, is there any, why would he even think like that? That's a very good question, because it has been ingrained into him. We spend our days now on these little boxes, and we scroll through them and we scroll through them, and we don't realize that an algorithm is being used to put ideas in our brain. So if I click on something that's hateful, Facebook or Instagram or whatever social media is going to send me more information. And I'm going to keep reading that information. It's no different than 1939 in Germany. They didn't have phones. They just had a book called Mein Kampf, and that was written by Adolf Hitler. And so reading things is why you think that way. Seeing is why you think that way. You're exposed to these things and these ideologies, and you start to take them in as your own. And to the point where always when you fear someone, that leads to resentment, and resentment usually leads to violence. So that's where we'll stop the class today. Is there any questions on checkpoint, summit expectations, and where we're headed next? We're headed to industrialization. Does anyone have any questions? Does anyone need any assistance? Okay. All right, well, thank you guys for putting up with me droning on a little bit there. We'll have a new lesson and a new checkpoint coming up soon. And for this class, just as a heads up, I may have told, I don't think she's here today. You are going to do as a project, I want you to actually, I'm going to give you a template. Your project is going to be to try to interview an immigrant, which means you're going to try to get in contact with someone who is from another country. They could be in your family. They could be from Mexico. They could be from Canada. They could be from Africa. It doesn't matter as long as they're not born in America. And you're going to try to sit down and answer some questions about how they feel, their experiences here in America, so we can build a better idea of how immigrants are being treated today. So that'll be your overall project. Okay, so I will see you folks again on Monday. Thank you for your patience and your input, and I will see you then. Any problems, just feel free to email me at, oops, make this correct. There's my email. All right, so have a good afternoon, folks. Enjoy the rest of your day. So Nelia, have a wonderful time with that little one. Better you than me today. Okay, so have a good one. I'll see you guys later.